got a chance to do one thing that every team in the country can't do. We got a chance to step up, man. We got a chance to step on the ledge, you know what I mean? And to me, I think it's a free fall. To be elite, you got to think free fall. That means you can't be afraid to go to the edge. And coach said, jump. You said, how far, coach? Where you want me to go? Every guy got a chance to do that today. If you're elite, grab somebody today. Take him with you. There's no more average in this program. There's no more average in this program.
I hope you guys are all doing well, and that should be the last time you see that long intro clip. I love it, but trust me, we got to shorten that up a little bit. We're not trying to hype this video up a little bit. I'll save that maybe for the offseason, but we're going to have it shorter and get further to the point this year as we're going to talk about college football and talk about so many games. Everything that you're going to be able to handle is going to be right here on this channel, so make sure you subscribe to it so you catch it even further. But also for more people to find a video like this one, all you got to do is click that like button. So like the video, please, especially if you do end up liking this video. But without further ado, here it is. The 12-team playoff bracket as I see it, based on all the predictions that I released last week and the conference championship picks. Boom. Here we go. Let's break it down here. Let's start with the bubble teams. As you can see, the last two teams in, and I think it's going to come down to the last two and the first two, but I said first four just like basketball. Utah and Wisconsin. I have them both playing in their conference championship games, and I have them both being able to get in simply because of the fact that I don't think they're going to get punished enough off of those losses, but I think they're going to get rewarded for being in those games. The first two out, 10-2 Missouri, I feel like their strength of schedule is just not there. They would have lost the one game that they really needed to win, and that was against Alabama. And then Notre Dame at 10-2, I think that there should be punishment for Notre Dame being an independent school and refusing to join a conference. Virginia Tech would have also lost in the ACC championship, but I think with the weakness of the ACC, I have a hard time seeing them be able to sneak a team in, a second team in, over a second Big 12 team with a similar record. And by the way, with Utah, they're sitting at 11-2. So they're also sitting better than a lot of these other teams. Then you got the Michigan Wolverines. They're going to have 3 games against preseason top 4 opponents and 3 games against teams that I have in this field of 12. That is going to be pretty tough for Michigan to overcome, losing all those games, considering that they do not have enough resume builders outside of those 3 games. But I have them losing all 3 of them. So let's talk about the teams that are in the playoff. We're going to start with the reasoning of the seeding of the conference champions. The Oregon Ducks get number 1 pretty simply because of resume. I think that though their out-of-conference schedule is pretty weak and the Georgia Bulldogs have an edge there with having Georgia Tech and Clemson, I don't expect much from Georgia Tech or Clemson. I don't think either of those will be ranked opponents, but I do think that Oregon will get a lot of love for beating number 5 Ohio State, though Georgia would avenge their loss to Texas, but then also Oregon would be above Georgia in the week rankings ahead. I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee is going to slide the Bulldogs above the Oregon Ducks and flip-flop those, but they easily could. But the biggest reason I don't think the committee would in this scenario is look at who 8 and 9 is. It is an all-SEC matchup, and for me to fit all of these SEC schools in there, it was bound to happen. At least this is a unique matchup in Oxford that doesn't take place in the regular season. The winner will take on Oregon. Alabama, Georgia, I know that could be a rematch if indeed Alabama wins. But with that being said, I think that a rematch or a potential rematch with Georgia is potentially unavoidable. Because what are you going to do? They play Alabama, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. That's all you got to say. That's all you got to say. Number 3, Kansas State. I have them above Florida State because I believe that their accomplishment in the Big 12 championship is going to be heavier. But then also Florida State, having a little bit worse of losses than Kansas State does. Specifically, well, I guess they're not bad losses, but Miami, Notre Dame, I think that those 2 losses that I have for Florida State, is going to kind of carry a little bit of weight, but then the lack of quality wins. Beating Virginia Tech is going to be significant, but to me, Utah is a playoff team. Virginia Tech's not. That's the difference between Kansas State and Florida State. And I got Florida State at 4, winning the ACC. The 12th seed I got in here is USF. I struggled with this, and we talked about the debate yesterday. Texas State sitting at 12-1. Their big wins out of conference would be UTSA, who USF beat in the American Athletic Conference in this scenario, and an Arizona State, who I think is going to be pretty abysmally bad. So I think that USF probably has a better resume because I have them pulling off an upset against Miami, especially if they can keep it close against Alabama. They're going to gain the respect of the College Football Playoff Committee in where they were able to keep it tight with the team in their field of 12, showing that they could potentially keep it tight with a team like their matchup with Ohio State. I have Ohio State ranked above Texas, and I think the biggest reason why is because Texas would have lost the game on a neutral field, and Ohio State lost the game against Oregon on the road. This was like pulling teeth, but at the end of the day, the biggest reason why, again, this is just how the College Football Playoff Committee works. I think they should just rank it and let it work itself out, and I hope they do. But if they feel like Texas is a better team than Ohio State, and I think Texas might have a better resume than Ohio State at this point, the idea of having Ohio State host a Big Ten opponent, Big Ten on Big Ten, versus SEC versus Big Ten, I think the committee is going to be more drawn towards that. So Ohio State gets USF, Texas gets Wisconsin. We'll make our way to Wisconsin here in a second, but Texas, that's why they're number 6. Number 7, 8, 9 works out like this. None of those 3 teams are exactly going to really, honestly, you could probably flip Tennessee and Alabama, and it wouldn't make much of a difference. But here's the thing with those 3 teams. It really does not matter how you rank them. I guess the highest ranked opponent would prefer to play a Big 12 team in Utah, but there's going to be a lot of flaws. I think a lot of people will try to claim that Alabama is a better team than Tennessee, despite the fact that Tennessee, in my view, beat Alabama in Knoxville. I think that a lot of people will be like, well, it was a road game. It was close. I think it's going to be close. And then Alabama has a pretty solid resume. I think Alabama, they're going to be a team that a lot of people are going to give a lot of respect to. But you could easily flip them in Tennessee or them in Ole Miss or however you want to work it out. I would honestly love to see a rematch in Tuscaloosa between Tennessee and Alabama in this scenario. But that 3, to me, it's hard to rank them. That's just how I ended up ranking them based on what I think the committee is going to value. And I think head-to-head is not going to matter as much, unfortunately, to the committee because of the fact that they are going to try to justify who the best teams are, especially when you're talking about a field that you're trying to get competitive first-round matchups. And I think there is no better matchup than Ole Miss and Tennessee. This is not a rematch. They don't play in the regular season. This is going to be amazing. 2 high-powered offenses going at one another in Oxford. If Oxford gets a home playoff game, think about these home playoff game environments in Oxford, Mississippi, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Austin, Texas, and Columbus, Ohio. You just love and love to see it. Let's talk about Utah. Utah, again, 11-1 regular season, great regular season. You can make a case for them to be maybe 8 or 9. But Utah here is going to slide to 10 because I think conference prestige is going to carry a whole lot of weight to knock them below these SEC teams. And then Wisconsin, a lot of people are going to crap on my Wisconsin pick. This is a situation here where I think Wisconsin is going to start the year not necessarily slow, but they're going to lose a couple games pretty early, and they're going to get hot at the end of the year when their system is fully intact, fully in place, and they're able to show what exactly they have at their own disposal. I think that Wisconsin is going to go on a tear at the end of the regular season that'll gain the respect of the committee and put them in over Missouri and Notre Dame. And I have Notre Dame losing the final game of the year which is going to be a big deal to the committee, I think, having that bad taste in their mouth. While Wisconsin, even though they got beat pretty roughly against Oregon, I think they're going to not punish them for that 13th data point based on how they finish the regular season, in my opinion. So let's predict this bracket. I don't have anything here. You can predict with me if you want, but let's predict this bracket as you see it and just go game by game. We're going to start up at that top left, Ole Miss and Tennessee. I think it's going to be a fun game. Two impactful defenses. I'm going with the home team here with a more impactful defense, in my opinion, specifically a better secondary, but then also better receivers. I just think Ole Miss is a better version of what Tennessee exactly is, and I think that'll be poured out onto the field in this playoff game. Alabama and Utah. I struggled with this one. I think Utah is going to be a big thorn in the side, but I don't think Utah has the up and talent and, frankly, the team speed to compete with Alabama. And I got the Crimson Tide moving on to rematch against the Georgia Bulldogs. Texas, Wisconsin. I think Texas runs them off the field. Though I really like Wisconsin this year, I think that they're going to hit a wall with this competition late in the year with Oregon in the conference championship. In Texas, I think they're going to come back to reality. Luke Fickell is going to gain a whole lot of respect that people have, for whatever reason, lost for him. I think he's going to have a big year too, but I don't think it gets too far. Texas gets a Big 12 rematch against the Kansas State Wildcats. And then finally, Ohio State, I think they pretty easily beat USF, but if they do look ahead to that game, that's going to be a game that's going to be close. If they look ahead to that bowl game against Florida State, that is going to be a game that's close. I trust in Ohio State's maturity to be able to handle that moment. Ole Miss and Oregon in a bowl game, that could be a big thorn in the Oregon Ducks side. You have a defensive line that's going to be decent at stopping the run. A Dillon Gabriel who shies away in big moments. I'm picking the upset here. The Ole Miss Rebels knock off a team on the bye. The Ole Miss Rebels are on to the college football playoff semifinals, and they will face against the Ohio State Buckeyes, who beat Florida State. I think they beat Florida State pretty handily, too. Florida State's not going to be able to throw the ball, and Ohio State has the best secondary in America. But I also think Ohio State has the front 6 or 7, depending on how what personnel the offense is in, to absolutely capitalize on this team and destroy them, essentially. I think that this could be the biggest blowout of the college football playoff, maybe even a bigger blowout than USF. I don't think Florida State fully would belong in here, but I think they win the ACC because of their talent. My hot debate for this season is that Avery Johnson isn't what people think he is. Well, from your perspective, what is Avery Johnson? And we're going to talk about Kansas State and Texas right now. I got Kansas State pulling off the upset. I am high on Texas this year, but I think that reuniting of the Big 12 teams, Texas has generally struggled with Kansas State. I mean, if you remember last year, Kansas State took them to overtime, and Avery Johnson is an exciting player. I don't think you guys should be able to doubt. Texas is going to be favored in this game, but I think Kansas State, with the extra week to prepare, great coaching and Chris Kleiman, they get it done. The Kansas State Wildcats are the surprise team in the college football playoff semifinal, and I think they'll take on Georgia. I think Georgia beats Alabama for a second team, and Kirby Smart proves that Alabama monster is that monkey is completely off of his back, and they move on to the college football playoff semifinals, where they will match up with the Kansas State Wildcats. Ole Miss versus Ohio State, I just don't think that Ole Miss is going to be built to go up against the best secondary. It's strength on strength. Best secondary in America with Ohio State, but Ohio State is going to be able to put up points themselves. I think Ohio State, especially running the football on the perimeter, going to find creative ways to get to the national championship and beat and fend off the feisty Ole Miss Rebels. We have a national championship appearance for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and they'll be playing the Georgia Bulldogs. I think Kansas State could keep this close for a little bit, but ultimately Georgia pulls away at the end, showing that they're the better team, showing that they're more talented. I think Georgia and Ohio State will match up in the national championship. And I'm fading my heart, guys. I'm fading my heart. Georgia wins the national championship this year. I was going to come on here and say Ohio State's winning it. I can't do it, dude. Like every single year that I've been doing social media, I cannot pick Ohio State to win the national championship. 2022 felt like it. They broke my heart against Michigan. They broke my heart against Georgia. I can't imagine this team doesn't break my heart just like the other ones. It's been a decade since the national championship, so it's not like, I'm a fan who's struggling over here. I have witnessed the national championship, and it came at a great time in my life. But with that being said, I can't trust my heart here that wants to pick Ohio State, and my brain tells me Ohio State's good enough to do it. They are good enough to do it. They can do it. The narrative is going to continue about Ryan Day can't win the big game because he didn't win the national championship. I don't care. I think Georgia this year is going to establish themselves as the next dynasty, winning 3 of 4 national championships, starting Kirby Smart's dynasty the same way that Nick Saban started his. And it's very, very nice to see, considering Nick Saban just left. Guess who's ready to take the reins? Kirby Smart.